Imagine sacrificing 15 years of your life in prison for a crime you didn't commit to protect the woman you love. Now imagine walking free, only to discover she sold everything you owned, let your parents die alone, married your best friend, and the children you went to prison for weren't even yours. This is the true story of a man whose greatest act of love became his greatest betrayal. And what he does next will restore your faith in humanity. Stay with me, because the story will break your heart, and then piece it back together in a way you never expected. Welcome to Radiant Story and Tales. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you are watching from. Let me tell you about a man named Daniel. For 15 years, he dreamed of one moment, the moment he would walk through his front door, wrap his arms around his wife, and hold his children close. 15 years. That's 5,479 days. 5,479 nights lying on a prison bunk, staring at a concrete ceiling, holding on to hope like it was the only thing keeping him alive. And maybe it was. Daniel went to prison at 28 years old. He was young, strong, full of life. He had built an electronics business from nothing, working 16-hour days until his hands were rough and his back ached. He bought a house for his family, a modest place, but it was theirs. He painted the gate himself. His wife, Jennifer, chose bright curtains for the windows. His 3-year-old daughter, Emma, would run through those rooms with her arms spread wide, pretending to fly. Life was good. Life was simple. Life was his. Then everything changed in one terrible moment. Jennifer's best friend died. Her name was Rachel, and she died because Jennifer pushed her during a heated argument. They were fighting over a man of all things. Rachel confronted Jennifer about sleeping with someone's husband. Words became shouts. Shouts became shoving. And then Jennifer pushed hard, and Rachel fell backward. Her head hit the concrete edge of a flower planter. The sound, witnesses said, was unforgettable. Rachel died right there, her body still warm when the police arrived. Jennifer was 4 months pregnant with twins. When the police came for her, she fell to her knees in front of Daniel and begged. She begged like her life depended on it, because it did. "I can't go to prison," she cried, her hands clutching his shirt. "Daniel, please. They'll take our babies. They'll take Emma. Please, baby, please. You're strong. You can survive this." "I can't." The evidence against her was overwhelming. Multiple people saw what happened. Her fingerprints were on Rachel's clothes. Everyone saw the rage in her eyes. But Daniel loved her, and love, he thought, meant sacrifice. So he did the unthinkable. He confessed to a crime he didn't commit. He stood in that courtroom, looked the judge in the eye, and lied. He said he was the one who pushed Rachel. He said Jennifer wasn't even there. His own lawyer told him not to do it. His parents screamed at him in court. His father collapsed from shock. His mother couldn't even look at him. But Daniel thought he was being a hero. He thought he was protecting his family. He thought that when he came home, Jennifer would be waiting with open arms, grateful for his sacrifice. The judge sentenced him to life in prison. And Jennifer? She played the role of the devastated wife for exactly 3 years. Then the visits stopped. The letters stopped. The phone call stopped. Daniel told himself she was just struggling, just overwhelmed with raising 3 children alone. He told himself she still loved him. He was wrong about everything. 15 years later, Daniel walked out of those prison gates. No ceremony, no fanfare. Just a guard sliding papers across a desk and saying, "You're free to go." A presidential pardon. Just like that. Daniel stood there. 43 years old now, his beard wild and gray, his body thin from prison food, his clothes hanging loose on his frame. Free. The word felt empty. The world outside was different. The city had changed. New buildings stood where empty lots used to be. People walked with their faces buried in phones. Cars he didn't recognize filled the streets. Even the air smelled strange. But his feet remembered the way home, through busy streets and crowded markets, past shops and corners he used to know. His body carried him back to Jennifer, to his children, to the family he had protected with his silence. When he found his street, when he saw his house, his heart nearly stopped. The gate was different. New paint, new metal. Plants he'd never seen before grew over the fence. The house looked prosperous, alive, well-maintained. Maybe Jennifer had kept things going. Maybe his sacrifice hadn't been in vain. He knocked on the gate. A young man opened it. Looked Daniel up and down with suspicion. Daniel looked exactly like what he was. A man who'd been buried alive for 15 years. "I'm looking for my wife," Daniel said, his voice shaking. "Jennifer, this is my house." The young man's face twisted with confusion. "There's no Jennifer here, sir. Please leave." "No, you don't understand." Daniel's voice cracked. "This is my house. I bought this house. My wife, my children. Uncle, please." The young man stepped back. "My father bought this house 15 years ago from some woman. There's no Jennifer here." 15 years ago. The words hit Daniel like a punch to the stomach. 15 years ago. He still had 10 years left in prison. Jennifer had sold their home. His home. The home he'd worked himself to exhaustion to afford. "What woman?" Daniel whispered. "Who sold you this house?" An older man appeared, stern and annoyed. "I bought this house legally from a woman named Jennifer in 2010. Paid full price. Everything documented. Now leave before I call the police." Daniel stumbled backward. The ground felt unsteady beneath his feet. Jennifer had erased him while he was still alive, still hoping, still counting down the days. She had erased their entire life together. Where was she? Where were his children? His parents? They would know. They would explain everything. The walk to his parents' house was long. 7 kilometers under the burning sun. Daniel's feet blistered in shoes that no longer fit. Cars honked at him. People stared. Some threw coins, thinking he was homeless. He left the coins in the dirt. When he finally reached his parents' house, everything looked wrong. The small house still stood, but the garden was overgrown with weeds. Paint peeled from the walls. The windows were dark and empty. "Mom? Dad?" His voice cracked with emotion. "It's me. I'm home." Silence. The door next door opened. A middle-aged woman stepped out, squinting at him. Then her hand flew to her mouth. "Daniel," she whispered. It was his Aunt Margaret, his father's sister, the woman he'd helped start her business years ago. Aunt Margaret, thank God. Relief washed over him. "Where are my parents? Where's Jennifer?" Margaret's face crumbled. She started crying before she even spoke. And Daniel knew. In that moment, he knew. "Come inside," she said softly. "Sit down." The story she told lasted 2 hours, but destroyed Daniel in seconds. His mother had gotten sick 8 years ago. Diabetes, then kidney failure. She needed medicine, treatment, care. Margaret called Jennifer, begged her for help with the medical bills. Jennifer refused. She claimed the money Daniel left was gone, spent on the children's education. She claimed she had nothing to spare. Margaret tried to help. She pulled together money from relatives. But it wasn't enough. Daniel's mother died calling for him, asking why her son had abandoned her. His father lasted 3 more years after that. Heartbreak killed him slower than disease killed his wife. He died in his sleep, alone. "They're buried in the public cemetery," Margaret said, her voice hollow. "We couldn't afford anything better." Jennifer didn't attend either funeral. Daniel's whole body shook. He couldn't breathe. The room spun around him. "The money," he finally managed to say. "I left properties, investments, savings. How could it all be gone?" Margaret's expression hardened. "That woman sold everything, Daniel. Everything. The shops, the land, the cars. She claimed she needed money to survive, but everyone saw how she lived. Big house in an expensive neighborhood. Designer clothes. Fancy cars. She wasn't suffering. But she came to visit me," Daniel said weakly, "at least in the beginning." "She came to make sure you stayed quiet," Margaret said bitterly. "That woman never loved you, Daniel. She used you." The room tilted. Daniel gripped the armrest to keep from falling. "The children," he whispered. "Emma, the twins. Where are they?" "I have an address," Margaret said. "But Daniel," You need to prepare yourself. Jennifer remarried. Of course she did. 15 years was a lifetime. He'd been a fool to think she'd wait. But even knowing that, nothing could prepare him for what came next. She married Thomas. Margaret said, "Your best friend, your business partner." The name hit Daniel like a bullet to the chest. Thomas, the man who'd stood beside him in the police station and promised to look after Jennifer and the children. The man who'd helped him plan his defense. The man who'd looked him in the eye and sworn brotherhood. "No," Daniel whispered. "Not Thomas." But it was true. All of it was true. Margaret told him everything. How Thomas and Jennifer started their relationship almost immediately after Daniel went to prison. How they moved in together within a year. How they told everyone Daniel had been executed so they could move on without guilt. And the twins, the babies Daniel went to prison to protect. They weren't his. They were Thomas's children. Jennifer had been pregnant with Thomas's babies when she begged Daniel to take the fall for murder. She'd been having an affair the whole time. Daniel sat in silence for 3 days. He barely ate, barely spoke. He just stared at the walls and tried to understand how his entire life had been stolen from him. On the 4th day, Margaret handed him a piece of paper with an address. This is where they live. Daniel took the paper with trembling hands. He was going to see his daughter. He was going to see what Jennifer and Thomas had built on the ruins of his sacrifice. The house was massive, modern and glamorous, with high walls, manicured lawns, and a gate that gleamed with fresh paint. 2 expensive cars sat in the driveway. This was where his money had gone. This was the price of his suffering. Jennifer's comfort. Daniel's hands shook as he knocked on the gate. A teenage girl opened the door, looked at him, and screamed, "Crazy man! Mommy, there's a crazy man outside." She slammed the gate and ran inside. Then Jennifer appeared. Even from a distance, Daniel could see she looked good. Healthy, well-fed, dressed in expensive clothes. She looked like a woman who'd never known suffering. She saw Daniel, and the color drained from her face. She ran back inside and slammed the door. "Jennifer," Daniel shouted, shaking the gate. "Jennifer, please. I just want to see my children." The twins appeared at a window. A boy and a girl, both about 16. They looked nothing like him. Then a silver car pulled up, and Thomas stepped out. Time stopped. Thomas had aged well. His body was thick with prosperity. His clothes were expensive. He looked like a man who made all the right choices in life. "You," Thomas said, his voice cold. "What are you doing here?" "Thomas." Daniel's voice broke. "Brother, it's me. It's Daniel." "I know who you are," Thomas said, "and I'm telling you to leave. Now." "I just want to see my daughter," Daniel pleaded. "Just Emma. That's all. Please." "Your daughter?" Thomas laughed bitterly. "You've been gone 15 years. You have no daughter here. Only strangers." The twins came outside now, standing behind Thomas. And the teenage girl, his Emma, stared at Daniel with disgust. "Who is that man, Daddy?" she asked Thomas. The word drove into Daniel's chest like a knife. Daddy. His daughter called Thomas Daddy. But it was the twins that shattered him completely. Now that he could see them clearly, he saw it. The resemblance. They looked exactly like Thomas. Same nose, same eyes, same skin tone. These weren't his children. They'd never been his children. "Oh, God," Daniel whispered. "The twins are yours." Thomas's face went rigid. Jennifer gasped from inside the house. "Get out," Thomas said. "Get out before I call the police." "You knew," Daniel said, his voice rising with rage. "You knew they were your children, and you let me go to prison anyway. You let me sacrifice my life for your children." Neighbors started gathering, pulling out phones to record. "I spent 15 years in a cage." Daniel shouted, 15 years protecting a family that was never mine. My parents died because of you. They died poor and alone because you stole everything from me." "Daddy, what's he talking about?" Emma asked, her voice frightened. Jennifer was crying now, her makeup running. "Daniel, please, not here, not like this. These people need to know what you did." Daniel gripped the gate. Emma needs to know what you did. Don't you dare speak to my daughter, Thomas warned. She's my daughter, Daniel roared. Mine. I went to prison for her. I lost everything for her. Emma stumbled backward, shaking her head. No, that's not true. My father is right here. You're just some crazy. I'm your father, Daniel said, tears streaming down his face. Your real father, the one who loved you so much he destroyed his own life to save your mother. Emma looked at Jennifer, then at Thomas. Mommy, is he telling the truth? The silence stretched forever. Finally, Jennifer whispered, Yes. Emma fell to her knees, wailing, And the twins? Daniel asked, Who fathered the twins, Jennifer? She couldn't look at him. Thomas. The crowd erupted. People shouted. Someone called it the most evil thing they'd ever heard. I gave you everything, Daniel said quietly. I gave you my freedom, my future, my parents. I gave you my life, Jennifer, and you took it all and gave it to him. I'm sorry, she whispered. Daniel laughed, and it sounded broken. You're sorry? You let my parents die. You sold everything I worked for. You raised my daughter to call another man daddy. And you're sorry. Thomas pulled Jennifer and the children toward the house. We're done here. I'm not going anywhere, Daniel said. Not until I talk to my daughter. And he meant it. Daniel stayed outside that gate for 3 days. He sat on the ground, refusing to leave. Neighbors brought him food and water. They'd heard his story. They'd seen the pain in his eyes. By morning, half the neighborhood knew what happened. By afternoon, it was on social media. Videos of the confrontation went viral. People demanded justice. Jennifer and Thomas couldn't leave their house. Every time they tried, Daniel was there, and so was a growing crowd demanding answers. On the 4th night, Thomas made a decision. If Daniel wouldn't leave, Thomas would make him disappear. He hired someone to kill Daniel, paid him cash to eliminate the problem. But that night, Daniel wasn't home. He'd gone to a bar, drowning his pain in cheap drinks, trying to numb the agony that had become his constant companion. Margaret's son, Kevin, was sleeping in Daniel's borrowed room when the killer broke in. 2 bullets. Quick and clean. The killer fled into the night, thinking the job was done. But the neighborhood watch had been suspicious of strangers. They caught the shooter 3 blocks away. Beat him until he confessed everything. Thomas hired me, he gasped through bloody teeth. Said there was a man causing trouble. Gave me the address and the money. Daniel came home to find his aunt wailing, her son's body covered in a white sheet, blood soaking through. Another innocent person dead because of Jennifer and Thomas. Daniel fell to his knees beside Kevin's body. But this time, instead of breaking, something inside him hardened. No more, he whispered. He stood up, his grief transforming into steel. He turned to the police officer and said, I know who ordered this, and I can prove it. The arrest happened at dawn. Police surrounded the house. Thomas tried to run but was tackled in his own driveway. Jennifer screamed and clutched her children. The killer had given a full confession. He named Thomas, described how they negotiated, how Thomas had provided Daniel's location, and a recent photo taken by Jennifer herself. But that wasn't all. Once the investigation began, everything unraveled. Rachel's murder case was reopened. Witnesses who'd been silent for 15 years finally came forward. People had suspected the truth all along, but had no proof. Now they had proof. Phone records showed constant communication between Jennifer and Thomas during Daniel's trial. Bank statements revealed Thomas had been supporting Jennifer from the day Daniel went to prison. Property records showed Thomas had bought their mansion with money from selling Daniel's assets. The prosecutor painted a clear picture. 2 lovers who conspired to get rid of the obstacle between them, who'd manipulated a good man's love to serve their own desires, who'd let that man sacrifice his life while they built paradise on his suffering. The trial lasted 3 months and became national news. Social media exploded with outrage. Celebrities took up Daniel's cause. Lawyers volunteered their services for free. A fundraising campaign raised millions for Daniel. Jennifer and Thomas sat in court, no longer touching, no longer united. The pressure had broken them. Thomas blamed Jennifer. Jennifer blamed Thomas. They destroyed each other on the witness stand. The judge showed no mercy. Thomas received 15 years for conspiracy to commit murder, plus additional charges for fraud and theft. Jennifer received 25 years for Rachel's murder, plus additional charges for fraud and elder abuse for letting Daniel's parents die. But the most devastating moment came when the judge addressed the children. DNA testing confirmed Thomas was the twins' biological father. These children had grown up believing Daniel was a murderer, that their mother was a widow, that their entire family history was a lie. The boy spoke first. "I don't know what to feel," he said, his voice shaking. "My whole life has been a lie." His sister was more direct. "What our parents did was evil. I'm ashamed to be their child." But it was Emma's testimony that broke everyone's heart. She stood before the judge, 18 years old now, tears streaming down her face. "I called him a crazy man," she said. "My own father came home after 15 years of hell, and I called him a crazy man because I didn't recognize him, because my mother had erased him so completely." She turned to look at Daniel. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for every day you dreamed of me while I lived in a lie." Daniel wept. The whole courtroom wept. Rebuilding a life from ruins takes more than money or justice. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes forgiveness, both given and received. Daniel recovered some of his properties through court orders. The fundraising money helped even more. It gave him stability and hope. But the real healing happened in quieter ways. Emma moved in with him. The transition was painful. She grieved for the only father she'd known. Thomas, despite everything, had raised her with love, and she tried to build a relationship with a father she'd never really known. They learned each other slowly. Daniel discovered his daughter was brilliant, studying law at university. The experience had changed her goals. Now she wanted to focus on wrongful conviction cases, on prisoners who'd been failed by the system. "Like you were," she said. "I want to find the innocent ones and bring them home." Daniel couldn't have been prouder. The twins were more complicated. They weren't his biological children. The court placed them in foster care while their parents served their sentences. But Emma visited them regularly. She maintained the sibling bond despite everything. One day, 6 months after the trial, Emma brought them to meet Daniel. "They asked to see you," she said. "They want to apologize." The twins stood on his doorstep, 16 years old, carrying the weight of their parents' sins. The boy spoke first. "We know you're not our father. We know you don't owe us anything. But Emma says you're a good man, and we wanted to say we're sorry." His sister added quietly, "The foster home is okay, but it's not family. We know we have no right to ask, but can we live here?" Daniel looked at these children who weren't his, who carried Thomas's blood, but not his sins, who were as much victims as anyone. He thought about what his parents had always taught him. Love is a choice, not just biology. He thought about the kind of man he wanted to be. Not the bitter man prison could have made him, but the man his suffering could shape him into. "Yes," he said, "you can stay." Emma gasped. The twins burst into tears. "But understand something," Daniel continued. "I won't pretend to be your father. I can't replace what you've lost, but I can be someone who cares. Someone who will make sure you have a chance at a better life. Can you accept that?" "Yes," they said together. "Thank you." Now, when Daniel sits at his table and watches these 3 young people doing homework together, bickering about math problems, laughing at inside jokes, he feels something he hasn't felt in 15 years. Peace. Aunt Margaret visits often. "You're a better person than me," she tells him. Taking in those children after everything. "They're not their parents," Daniel says simply. "They're just kids who need someone to believe in them." Emma is thriving in law school. She volunteers at a legal aid clinic, already helping prisoners file appeals. She's becoming the person Daniel always hoped she'd be. The twins are healing too. Slowly. Painfully. But definitely healing. They call Daniel Uncle Daniel now, and it feels right. Not forced. Just right. Some nights, Daniel still has nightmares about prison, about the 15 years stolen from him, about his parents dying alone, about all the moments he missed. But then he wakes up in his own bed, in his own home. He hears Emma's voice calling him for breakfast. He hears the twins arguing over the bathroom. He hears life happening around him. And he realizes something profound. Jennifer and Thomas took 15 years from him. They took his youth, his parents, his innocence, his trust. But they couldn't take his capacity to love. They couldn't take his ability to forgive. They couldn't take his choice to be better than they were. In the end, that's what revenge really looks like. Not hatred, not bitterness, not returning evil for evil. Real revenge is building something beautiful from the broken pieces. It's choosing love when you have every reason to choose hate. It's opening your home to children who share the blood of your betrayer because they need someone to show them a different way. Daniel lost 15 years, but he gained something too. He gained the knowledge that he's stronger than he ever knew. That love is a choice he can make every single day. That family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who chooses you. Jennifer and Thomas are in prison now, living with the consequences of their choices. But Daniel is free, truly free, not just from prison bars, but from the bitterness and hatred that could have become his real cage. He's free to love, free to forgive, free to build a new life. And that, more than any court verdict, is the sweetest justice of all. Some stories don't end with revenge. They end with redemption. They end with a man who had every reason to become bitter, choosing instead to become better. They end with broken people building something whole together. This is one of those stories. And every time Daniel sits down at dinner with Emma and the twins, every time they laugh together and plan for tomorrow, he knows something Jennifer and Thomas will never understand. Real victory isn't about who hurt who. It's about who chose love when hate would have been easier. It's about who broke the cycle. It's about who decided that the pain stops here. Daniel decided. And in that decision, he found not just justice, but peace. That's the end of the story. But for Daniel and his family, it's really just a beginning.